I think it takes a person with humility to admit when they were wrong, but I was wrong about Don Cherry, and I'm here to talk about it. Welcome back to the Freedom Pines podcast. I'm your host, Jamie A.B. This is where we debrief and discuss pop culture and politics from an independent perspective, and if that interests you, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this with your friends, because it's hard to get my name out in Commie Canada. Let's get into it. So first, before I get into my video, I want to acknowledge and thank all of the veterans and Canadians who are currently in the military for, sacrificing yourselves for our country. Okay, I really hope that after this 51st state rhetoric that people understand why our sovereignty would be so important and why protecting it is also so important. So before I get into today's video, I just wanted to talk about what the day is actually about, and that is remembering all of the fallen soldiers who died in World War I. And World War I ended November 11th on the 11th hour, which is why that's when we have our moment of silence. I personally ever since I became a stay-at-home mom, I go to the wreath laying ceremony, especially because my kids go there for their school. And that's how I obviously have a poppy, and I donate to the Legion. And the Legion has helped our family before. So I am incredibly grateful for the work that they have done in the past and continue to do. And that's why Don Cherry was correct when he said what he said. Okay, so let's get into it. So I would like to say first that I think it is, I just wanted you guys to hear me out. I know that I was a raging leftist before, but I'm not anymore. And I want to tell you kind of the thought process behind lefties and what goes on in their heads. And, how I've learned from that. So when you're a leftist, you're very vehemently anti-war, which means that you are anti-military, anti-veteran, anybody who they hate people who serve in the military. Okay, this is the programming that happens on the left. When you are in these left-leaning spaces, they think anybody who goes into the military, they are evil. If they perform for the military, evil. All of these different things. Now, granted, okay, is war my favorite thing? No, but I can see the nuance in things, and part of that nuance came when we realized that Donald Trump wanted us to become the 51st state. Now, I'm not so scared of Donald Trump or America or anything because we're allies. However, I was scared when we had a Yahtzee in the House of Commons, honored him in the House of Commons, by the way. And then mysteriously, the Monday after, Northeastern Ontario had bomb threats to the schools. And that's when I started kind of thinking like, we don't touch our minerals. We just, had a Yahtzee in the House of Commons. Canada doesn't have a lot of friends, especially when Trudeau was in, we were embarrassing ourselves tenfold. What's stopping, not even just America, but anybody from coming in, okay? Anybody would love to have our land too, because not only are we rich in minerals, but we are so close to America. I'm sure there's a lot of countries who would love to come in and spy on America and be right on its border. And I'm sad that it took 10 years of liberal destruction and absolute unlimited, unchecked, immigration for me to realize that Don Cherry was correct, okay? And it shouldn't have taken what happened in 2021 when they tried to tell us that all of our ancestors were colonizers, and yet on Remembrance Day, it's funny that they say that because a lot of our ancestors died for this country. So the nerve of the Canadian government to do what they did to the Indigenous people, turn around and blame your ancestors, our ancestors, that is why this is so dang important, okay? And you know what? If I went to any other country and they housed me, took me in as a refugee from Canada, who knows, might be possibility one day, okay? I would learn what they do and practice my new culture. I might do things in my personal home that feel Canadian and bring me back to my roots. However, I wouldn't not participate in whatever they're doing because I'm from a different country and it's offensive. Never. And it would be ignorant for me to do so. And you know how I know that? Because the left told me that it would be ignorant. Oh, Americans, they always make fun of Americans. Americans are hated around the world because they come in and they act like they own the place. But it's certainly okay when other people come and do it to us. Like, this is the way that the left thinks, you guys. They are so anti-war that they can't see the nuance in things. I know because I was on the left and brainwashed like this. And surprisingly, the left is still complaining about, like, I understand the budget replacing people who work at the CRA with AI is going to help absolutely nobody, besides saving us money. It's not going to save us money, by the way. It's going to basically drown Canadians because the regular people that work in CRA are currently doing that. So I'm pretty sure AI is going to be doing the same. But you would think that they would see that spending money on a military after our sovereignty was, rocking the boat there. No, they don't. They still vehemently against people who serve in the military, people who fought in the military, people who died in a war. They somehow make every single thing about them and why they shouldn't have to do anything. Now, here's the thing. I will say, I decorate my house for Christmas. It's a 2-week job. So after Remembrance Day, we put up the tree. Okay, and we watch, there has been years where our tree was up and we were watching the wreath laying ceremonies at home on the TV while the Christmas tree is right beside us. I don't think veterans actually care about that. I think they care about you wearing a poppy at least on the day where it should matter, okay? And if you can, I know a lot of people work, so they can't go to the wreath laying ceremonies or anything, but donate to the Legion. Make sure you're buying your poppy. There's lots of things, and, ask your work to take a moment of silence. I mean, we all know that the works celebrate pride and do all of these different things, okay? The least that they can do is give you guys a moment of silence at 11 o'clock. I'm just saying, all of the woke nonsense that they do, they can't do this, they can. And I wish I didn't have to learn about our government stealing people's history and culture to realize why it is so important for us to be celebrating Christmas, saying Merry Christmas, okay? Wearing a poppy, celebrating Canada Day. All of the other things that we do as tradition have never been more important for us to be doing with our kids, with our friends, with our family. Okay, keep the Canadian spirit alive because it is slowly dying. And I don't even consider Canada to be a free place anymore. I mean, we do have some freedoms, but when people who are protesting for their bodily autonomy to not be forced to take something and they get their bank accounts frozen, I'm not so sure that's freedom. But I'll tell you what was, and it was whatever Canada was before Trudeau was in. Okay, and what freedom meant to me and what it means to be Canadian to me is that someone like me who came from a not so great start, okay, I had a pretty tough childhood. You guys know I was adopted at 16, single mom by 19. And what was I able to do? Go to school, work in the schools, own a home, get married, have beautiful children, and live a very comfortable life. And that's all most of us are asking for back. Please stop drowning us, okay? Because that's what we want. We want freedom back. We want our hard work to pay off. And I know that when I'm watching veterans cry, I understand where they're coming from, okay? They didn't die for us to be taken and swallowed by the WEF, okay? I don't think our veterans died for a country that would offer them medical assistance in dying rather than actual help. Okay, and that's certainly not the country that I am proud to be part of, which is exactly why I'm using my voice for as long as I am legally allowed to speak out against this government. Okay, I am relatively center-leaning, and when I came out in support of the Freedom Convoy, which was, by the way, a protest for bodily autonomy, okay, and our lives back, because some of us have actually gone through things during the panini press, okay? They didn't die for our bank accounts to be frozen, for us to be beat by our own government or whoever those cops were that came to the Freedom Convoy to break it up. Okay, that is not the version of Canada and that they died for. And that is why it is so important that everybody who is Canadian, everybody who comes here to Canada, especially because we put such an emphasis on how important pride is and all of these different things, okay? Yes, we should absolutely be... Remembrance Day is a time where people are walking around wearing these poppies. You know, it's different than what is going on. They should be learning that when they're becoming Canadian. Like, oh, this is when we honor all of the people that made Canada so free for you to want to come here. Okay, I wish it didn't take me 10 years of Liberals being in, I would say 3 years of unchecked immigration, okay, and learning about how our government has a history of taking people's culture from them, okay, for me to learn that Don Cherry was right. But that is what it takes when you are brainwashed by the left. Okay, you have to... people wonder how Canadians are still asleep. It is because they are so brainwashed that they have to go through a bunch of things to realize that the government that they think is the good guys are actually probably the bad ones. You know what I mean? You know, and I don't just say that. Okay, I think that a lot of government is corrupt. However, when I watched myself go and live in a Canada where I went from being adopted at 16, going through a really tough childhood, okay, all the way to being a mom at 19 by myself and being able to take all of that and make something of myself, that's the Canada that I was proud to raise my children in. And that is the Canada that we need to get back to and remember. And that is why days like today are so important, okay? So you guys let me know, what do you guys do for Remembrance Day? Does your work do a moment of silence? I really want to know that. And if you don't work, do you go to the wreath laying? I want you guys to know that at most legions, you can look it up on your Facebook or whatever, they have wreath laying ceremonies where you can go and honor the veterans that are there and that died for the country. And the cadets will be there, and members of the Legion will be there as well. So that's a good way to help remember the veterans and give your time. You can also buy poppies. I will say it was a lot harder to find poppies this year, but they were still there. So maybe we can be volunteering at the Legion during the year. The Legion has very much helped my family during a Christmas time, and I can't wait one day to be able to give back to them. Okay. And I will say before I go that there is this awesome program that the Property Brothers are doing where they go around Canada and build houses and condos for veterans. And, you know, I just think it's sad that our government doesn't do that for them, but the Property Brothers seem to have a good program in place. So maybe that's something to look into as well. So, and they have more sway because a lot of these times where people go to do these things for the veterans, they are stopped by the municipalities. So, anyways, guys, I am going to go get ready to go to the wreath laying ceremony, and I will see you guys in the next one. You guys let me know what you guys do for Remembrance Day, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Okay, remember that you matter, you're here for a reason, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Okay, I will see you guys in the next one. Wait, we forgot to do our deep breath. Okay. More of a calm video today, but I had to say it. I already seen that Juno News released the same title I wanted to say, so I'll have to come up with a different one, but thanks for watching.